What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 2236 podcast. I'm your host, Residentdarrell, and alongside me tonight, I got the host of Whatever Talk. It is Yun Twist himself. What's up, Donnie?
What up, Joe? I love podcasting. I just realized that maybe talking is my therapy.
I feel you, brother. Podcasting and music are definitely my source of therapy. So, Donnie, we started this podcast a few years ago, and we put out a pilot episode on the Loot Bros podcast feed, just kind of get a feel for what people, might think of this type of show. Would this work? Would this not work? And we got positive reception, so we posted a few extra episodes, but those episodes were lost in the ether, lost on the internet. And then through various life changes and things, we decided we would shelf the project until a later date. So now here I am, and I've called you onto the show, and I appreciate you joining me so we can get together and rate the Resident Evil games. Now, a listener for the Loot Bros podcast wrote in and said, hey, I would love to hear you just break down your favorite Resident Evil games, top 10, top 20, what have you. So that, Donnie, is why we're here tonight. And so I'm very excited for us to tackle this together. So now, right before the show, you and I were having a conversation about, survival horror games and the balance of fun and tension. And over the years, survival horror as a whole kind of took a bit of a dive, a bit of a dip. And what I realized as I was making my list for this week's topic, that the games that I enjoyed the most, the games I had the most fun with, weren't exactly the scariest games. And you had mentioned that I wasn't ready for Dead Space, and I just wanted to let you know that the morning after we record this, a listener and I will be getting together and playing through Dead Space 3 together.
But I hope you guys have fun, because it's not scary. So fun is...
Oh, you're right.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. What I was going to say is you're right. I mean, I've played it before, and the first couple hours of it wasn't that scary, but I just never completed the game. And so I'm starting it over fresh, with a friend, and we're going to knock it out. But that said friend is the one who had wrote into the show and was like, hey, I want you guys to list the Resident Evil games. And so I had to call my buddy Donnie. I had to call you up, bro. And I was like, we have to put together this list and come through, and figured out which ones were the best. And as I was going through the list, I realized that the ones that I had the most fun with were actually the ones that weren't very scary. So then I had to, I'm like coming through this list. I'm like, am I even a real survival horror fan? Or am I just a big freaking poser?
Am my own fandom deceiving me?
I'm a poser. I'm not even the real deal.
I tricked myself.
Yeah, here I am saying I'm a OG. I'm a real deal Resident Evil fan, survival horror fan. And I'm over here thinking, it don't get no more real than this. And then I put my list together, and I'm like, wait a second. I make fun of guys like me.
Exactly. And now you getting scared over Colossus with a rocket. That ain't scary. That's not scary.
All right, Donnie, are you ready to get into us listing and rating our favorite Resident Evil games?
Yes, I am ready, but I will tell you that I am not as ready as you think. No, it's just that I haven't played. It's only the numbered ones and maybe like 5 of the just titled ones that I play.
Well, that's all right, because the numbered ones are the ones that were specifically requested and have been deemed the most important.
Those are the ones that matter anyway. Well, no, they don't. No, they don't, actually. They don't, actually. I'm sorry to talk. They actually don't. The number one matter, and about the 5 that I'm going to say that's not numbered actually do matter. So this is one of the franchises that the spin-offs do actually matter.
And the best part is, just when you think they don't matter, 3 or 4 spin-off games later, they'll release a file or something, and now you're like, oh wait, now all this stuff is canon. All right, so this is how we're going to do this. Normally, when you give a top 10 list, you go starting from the worst to the best, 10 to 1, and you give them, all the fodder to begin with. But what we're going to do is we're going to flip it on its head, and we're going to start with our favorite games in the franchise and work our way down to the ones that maybe aren't our favorite or just didn't quite stack up to the better games.
All the ones that came out in the past 5 years, except for 7 and 2.
All right, well, I'll let you go first, Donnie. What is your number one favorite Resident Evil game of all time?
My favorite Resident Evil game, I'm sticking with 4. I like 4. What made 4 my number one is it branched off from that tank control over to more fluent control, and you can aim your weapon different body points, or you can just aim it. And on top of all of that, they still kept the horror.
Now, the story was a little whack, but everything else about the game was really good.
The story could have been cool if it wasn't for the freaking president's daughter. F her.
And Sadler. God, he was awful.
Well, no, he actually was dope. No, wait a minute. Sadler. Is that the midget?
Yeah, the little guy.
Yeah, he was cool.
No, God, no. Ugh.
He kept comic relief happy.
More like cringe relief.
He made Leon look more of a badass than Leon actually is, but then he grows to be.
You're right. He does grow to be pretty bad, but my favorite Resident Evil game of all time is no surprise. If you've followed any of the podcasts or any of the shows that I've been on, you guys know that I'm going to say Resident Evil 2, the original on PS1.
Oh, I was going to say Resident Evil 2, the new one, because I know my man.
Well, it's definitely not the new one. I really like the new one, but the original is the best one. And the reason why the original is the best one is because the story was the best, the character interactions, the scenario A, the scenario B, like the horror and the action mix was perfect. There is no Resident Evil that has ever captured that feel like the original Resident Evil 2 did. And that is a game that I go back to year after year. I replay it all the time. It is just wonderful. And one of the things that it does better than the remake, it does because it's the original, is it captured the character interactions and the choice that was important of whether or not you use certain items, because then when your next playthrough, when you're the next character going through the opposite end of the game, those things matter, and you might not leave something for that person. You might need it. The scenario B was a little bit tougher, so you really had like weight and gravity to your choices. And at the end of the game, the characters and all their interactions mattered, and it paid off for the story. And it was just wonderful, fantastic masterclass in gaming. Still my all-time favorite game. I have not played anything else that has captured the feeling that I get playing through that game. It is truly fantastic.
Awesome. This is a good one. It's it's in the top 3 in mine.
All right, Donnie, what is your number 2?
Number 2 is Resident Evil 7. Yes, I jumped so many of them, but it is a reason for me. If you paid attention to me throughout Trophy Horrors and any other guests I'm to have podcast, that I am a fan of evolution in gaming. So I grow out of the grow out of the PlayStation 1 type place gaming. So that being said, that's why Resident Evil 7 is very high at the list, because that, and after all the years in game titles that took away from what Resident Evil is about for the most part, Resident Evil 7 brung it back with the vengeance. With vengeance, it said, you know what? I got this. I got this. You want to be scared? You want to get sent to the hospital for a heart attack? I got you. I do that
Dude,
for you.
real. Like literal tension. I could feel it in my chest. Like,
Exactly.
Straight up. It was awesome.
This me being the living embodiment of Resident Evil 7. It's like, I got you, but I will apologize for first person.
Yeah, for real. You remember that angry teenager phase? Oh, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, I don't know what the heck I was thinking. You know what? I got an idea and execute it instead of getting the idea, thinking about it, and then executing it. That's what happened.
It was a good game, though. Real good game. Did you ever get the platinum?
Yes, I got the platinum trophy for Resident Evil 7. Oh yeah, that's another big thing that I like about Resident Evil 7. They brought back what game completion is all about. Like, we complete the game not to only just, ooh, I beat it now, I can see the ending, but we also play the game multiple times for the bonuses. Like, Resident Evil 7 brought that back to the franchise as well. I can't stress that enough to developers. Give us completion bonus. Like, these games are not as easy as they used to be, and or hard as they, or vice versa. Anywhere it goes, it's like you work hard to get to the credit, and you just get a want to play again, and I got to go through all that hard stuff all over again. Like, no, I just did this junk on mega hard, and it took a fruit. They shot me in the eyelash, and I died. Like, no, I don't want to go through that no more. I want to be a god now. You know what I'm saying? So, Resident Evil 7, they brought that back. Like I said, they came back with vengeance.
Yes, sir. Yes, they did. So, well, that brings me to my number 2, and it is a bit the opposite of yours being number 7. Mine is Resident Evil 5, my number 2 favorite Resident Evil game.
Is it opposite by number or opposite by
Resident Evil 5 is not the scariest Resident Evil game ever made, but my God, it was so much fun to play. I can't think of one single scare in the entire game, actually. So,
well, it's there. It said that when you hit start. When you hit start, it said Resident Evil. That was scary.
That's about the scariest thing in the game, for sure. But it didn't stop me from having the absolute time of my life playing that game. I've told the story on many, many podcasts. But one of my good friends and old bandmates was getting married, and for his little bachelor party thing, we all got Resident Evil 5, picked up our pre-orders, picked up our consoles, and stayed up all night playing the game in co-op, and it was freaking amazing.
That's where you messed up. That was scary. 360. That's fine.
Scariest part of the whole experience. But 100% the game on at 360. I platinum on PS3. I'm platinum on PS4, and I've almost 100% it again on Xbox One. But I've loved that game. It is so much fun to play. It's very action-packed, but it's one of the best co-op games ever made. Drop in, drop out, just seamless fun. And that there lies the problem, is that I just had so much fun playing the game, but we were never scared, not once.
Like, everybody complained about Sheva.
Oh, I like Sheva.
She was doing her thing with me every time I played.
Well, she was terrible on professional. Like, she was good on the other difficulties.
I give you that.
Professional, she was
I give you
useless.
that. I give you that. And besides her not being what everybody claims her to be with me, she was a little trigger happy.
Oh, ammo waster.
So
I really liked her as a character, and I thought she was good. She was tough. She was written well. I mean, decent enough for how they kind of threw her in there with no real backstory. But I thought she was a good addition to the game. That's definitely a thing. But yeah, I enjoyed that game immensely, and I enjoyed playing it with people. I played it by myself. But here I am, number 2 of the Resident Evil list, and it's not the most survival horror game on the list.
Yep. You said it. You had a blast.
I sure did. Didn't get scared a bit, but I did give my heart a little bit of a break. So there's that.
But we play Resident Evil for we prepare our heart for Resident Evil, and that happens. 5 come out.
Oh yeah, dude, that game came out. I'm like, no energy drinks, nothing to get my blood pressure up, no caffeine. Gonna do a little bit of cardio, kind of take care of the heart for a change. Gonna play the game. Freaking not scary at all, because I'm punching boulders, man. I'm bad.
Exactly. You went from being a freaking just a police officer to being a freaking hawk. He's a Marvel character now.
I know, right? But you got to ask yourself, how many times you got to save the world before you just start juicing and taking steroids?
I still think Chris is T-virus microdosing. I still believe it.
Yes, I agree.
Only other character that can punch a boulder that is technically not human anymore in that game was Wesley.
Truth.
Chris, I don't care how big you got, you should not be able to punch a boulder into a lava.
Resident Evil 5 is a lot of things, but the one constant that everyone remembers is the scene where you're punching a giant boulder in that middle of a volcano.
You can't get past it. You just can't. Because it's like two things. Like, I know logic in video games is not supposed to be there. But when you have fun and think about it like that, two things is happening in that scene that should not be happening. For one, they're breathing.
Because they're in a volcano.
They're breathing. That's just that alone. But for him to be breathing and still have the strength to even tap on a boulder, let alone uppercut it into some lava.
You didn't get that from CrossFit. It's so crazy.
Oh man, but yeah, that's I like it. I have fun as well. To keep things moving, I guess I go to kind of run along with 5.
All right, Donnie, what is your Resident Evil 3? I mean, your number 3 on the list.
It is Resident Evil 3. No, it's not. No, it's not.
Snap! I thought I got it. Yeah, dang, I thought I guessed it.
Number 2. And the original number 2. Now, I say the original number 2. It actually, me being me right now, I will say Resident Evil, the remake 2, the remake, but Resident Evil 2 is what's the word I'm looking for? It's nostalgic. Here we go. Not only is it nostalgic, it's like it's the second horror game that I ever played, and it was dope. I enjoyed being scared. Like, that's the only game. Not the only. My bad. I was about to in case I become president in the future, I don't want this to come back.
Don't tell no lies.
Not the only game, but the first game I realized I can scream like a girl. And it was in the very beginning, as soon as you make it to the police station, and we all know the hallway.
Oh, yes.
We all know. Oh, arms.
Yeah. They'll get you.
Yeah, so
walk by that window, man, that liquor.
Oh, that too.
I think it was bad, dude.
And everything that you said about Resident Evil 2 as well is I'm saying the same thing. Piggyback off of it. That game it's to me, that is one of, matter of fact, that's not one of, it's the biggest mistake that Resident Evil 2 remake doesn't have. I don't see why, especially with the system it's about to go into, PlayStation 5 now, the next generation, and you still couldn't have the capabilities of doing that. It's no reason why everything you explained about your number one, which is Resident Evil 2, could not be in that game and more.
Oh, I agree, 100%. But my number 3 on the list of Resident Evil games ranked would be Resident Evil 4. One of the most mind-blowing, best games I'd ever played up to that time. I picked it up on the GameCube, just had an absolute blast. The third person over the shoulder. There was a lot of horror left in the game, but being able to run around and have a new camera view, be able to aim at things, it was just so eye-opening. It was a really lengthy game too. I just had such a blast, and I played it over and over and over again. It had great boss fights. A little cheesy dialogue. It had some cheesy characters, and Ashley was a cheesy character as well. Sadler was booty, but I mean, just the inventory system and everything was so good.
She is the only character in video game history, movie history, TV show history that I can think of that cannot maneuver away from Walking Dead type zombies.
So slow she can't dodge.
Exactly. She literally does the Austin Powers when in the factory. No, in the factory when he just yelling.
Yeah.
With the bulldozer is about to run him over, and the bulldozer
it takes like 20 minutes to get to
at the other end of the plant.
That's
exactly.
funny.
That's her. And then she just standing there while the freaking zombie is literally 3 blocks and around the corner yelling, Leon.
That's so terrible.
Stop looking under my dress.
Well, Ashley aside, the thing that I disliked the most about the game, at least for a while, was the struggle that they went away from regular zombies and moved on to these Los Pelagas. And I was like, wait a second. These things aren't slow moving. They're, moving in groups. They're communicating. I was like, this is not, traditional zombies like I like. So it took me a while to get over that. And lo and behold, that would be the least of my worries when it comes time for Resident Evil 6. But as an old school zombie fan, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, the Romero games, like I wasn't even really a fan of like the fast-paced rage zombies like 20 Days Later. I just like the slow moving.
You don't even have to be
just like the slow
zombie, just typical Resident Evil.
Well, I just was used to it, man. That's what I wanted, But I ended up having such a blast with the game. I enjoyed the game so much that I even wrote a song called Chicago Typewriter with my band Ninja Loot. And it actually went on to be one of our most popular songs. You had to get that infinite Tommy gun, had to meet with the merchant. And the merchant, he was one of the coolest parts of the game, which I hate that they didn't repeat that in later games. It was like, what are you selling? What are you buying?
Oh man, that's a good one. My number 4 is Resident Evil. I cannot talk. Resident Evil 1.
The original?
The original. The original. Well,
because the remakes, where's that?
They both, in my opinion, they both operate the same. They just got better graphics. So I guess it doesn't really matter in my opinion. But one, I mean, the remake does have those freaking chrome or
Crimson Heads.
Yeah, Crimson Heads.
At least a Trevor.
Yeah, they had a ton of content, but yeah, it's freaking Crimson. Sucky. But
I agree.
But Resident Evil 1 is my 4th one, mainly because it introduced me into the franchise. Like, I actually played the games Resident Evil in order they came out. So I played 1, 2, 3, 4. Code Veronica after 4, right?
Code Veronica came out before Resident Evil 4.
Oh, okay. So I didn't play it before it came out. The numbered ones I played before it came out.
Gotcha.
But
yeah, if you were a PS2 gamer, then
it was
you
dope.
played Code Veronica after Part 4, because Part 4 came out for GameCube. And
You're
then
right.
was released on
you're absolutely
PS2.
right. You're absolutely. I remember it now.
And then Code Veronica X came out for the PS2. So I have to check the dates, but I think that's how it worked.
You're right. So yeah, it was. So I played the number one supporter, but Resident Evil 1 is what introduced me into the Resident Evil franchise, and yeah, it was scary, but it did this intentionally. They did what I'm about to say intentionally. I mean, not intentionally. I think mistaken. At least I want to say they did it unintentionally. The game was scary, but it kind of kept you at an ease or a level type of calm and scary because of the acting.
Oh yeah.
In the game. So every time they act or had to speak in the game, it kind of brought the tension down from your heart being racing out of your chest. So
you are almost a Jill sandwich.
But probably.
Don't worry about me. I have this.
Yeah, Enrique.
Barry. Where's Barry? Blood. I hope this isn't Chris's blood.
Oh.
Some of the best stuff ever, man.
Yeah, so that's really it for one. Like it basically just introduced into the franchise.
Well, I'm gonna have to second you with the number 4 entry, and that would be Resident Evil 1. But I'm gonna go with the Resident Evil 1 remake. Now, Resident Evil 1 was good, and it wasn't my first game in the franchise, but it was definitely one that I spent a ton of time with. But then in 2000, 2001, whenever the remake came out, and it just upscaled everything, made the pre-rendered backgrounds look better, like just made the game player, added so much extra content. I mean, it was so freaking good and just mind-blowing at the time. Like, and just going back, and then obviously the Crimson Heads, they suck butt, but then freaking Lisa Trevor's whole section and that whole story, and then seeing the shark Neptune and just reimagining that whole area and that giant freaking plant, like and the fact that you could beat the game and not save some of the characters, and beat the game and save a bunch of the characters. I mean, it just really changed things and given extra perspective on just what was going on with Barry and Wesker. And you actually get to see a lot more behind the scenes in the game on what's going on in the world, in the story, and in the universe. And it really, really did a good job of fleshing out that story and really taking characters that you already cared about, and in my opinion, made you care a little bit more about them. So I think that by and large, the Resident Evil 1 remake did a better job with the story, and of course graphics and sound design was just amazing, and the extra content was really good too.
Awesome. My 5th one, I just swapped it, and I think I'm not even ashamed to say this. I already am ashamed to say this, but I don't even think I want to put it on the list because I really forgot what really happened in the game, which is Resident Evil 3. I can't really remember like the main things that happened in the game besides it was Jill and Nemesis. Yeah, so I can't remember what really went down. Like, I can remember 2 and 1 because I played those multiple times. And I played all the Resident Evil games multiple times. But damn, remember those completion bonuses. But I just cannot remember 3 for the life of me. So, I'm going to go with 5 is my 5th. And 5. And I say that just because now it's starting to go down the field of what I really dislike about games that I have played. So 5 is 5, and it is all got to do with took away horror. I ain't got nothing to say about it. besides what I already said about it. It just completely negated horror, and that's why it's at the bottom of that list.
I feel you. So, well, my number 5 would be Resident Evil 7. Now, I know you've already talked about how you thought that was such a return to form when it comes to the horror, but like, and it really was, and I agree. And the tension was there, and the game was great. I mean, it had so many things going for it. Graphically, it looked amazing. The story was actually really good. It really did a good job of putting a lot of information there and kind of expanding the universe. You know, the game had gotten so big and so bloated and really gotten, so over the top with 6 that it really, really did a good job of dialing it down and putting it, simplifying it back into the actual horror, which is Resident Evil. And it really got it back to a pure form. But some of the things like changing Chris's appearance, that just really didn't work for me, adding him at the end of the game.
Oh my goodness. What the heck was they thinking?
I just don't know how you can go from roided Chris to CrossFit Chris like that.
Yeah, you can't give us Code Veronica all over again after we didn't already have what we had. We got us a taste of the hunk. We want the hunk back.
I had the Incredible Hulk Chris, and then they give us the little itty bitty CrossFit Chris. But like the game had some great DLC, like some scary DLC. It had some really good puzzle DLC because the puzzles weren't that great in Resident Evil 7. I mean, they were there, and it was good to have them because you went from like 4, 5, and 6 to where each entry the puzzles died down and dwindled into nothing, and that is a very important part of Resident Evil. But you go and you kind of dial it back. Now, the character Ethan didn't really work for me all that well either. It wasn't a deal breaker. It wasn't a bad thing. I just really would have preferred to be one of the mainstays in the franchise. But that's kind of a small gripe.
I was about to say, so why is this in the low of the top 5?
Well, it is still one of my favorites.
Yeah. Well, you got to deduct points for this too as well, because this was a major. I'm baffled at the end of this game. I'm like, where is my freaking rocket?
Dude, for real.
Why am a handgun, man? What the heck? A handgun took out the main
You have this crazy boss battle, this over-the-top boss battle, and then they land the plane with a handgun, knowing that in every Resident Evil game, they drop a freaking rocket launcher from the sky, and that's how you're supposed to kill him.
And look, he in the helicopter waiting to throw down this big briefcase to get the big briefcase, but this is a tutu in that mud.
Like, what do you want me to do with this?
I'm like, what the heck am I supposed to... I got the cricket from Men in Black. What the heck am I supposed to do with this?
Hey, but
what
it
am
did
I
the
going to do
job.
with this junk, man?
It really did. It just wasn't the same.
I know. I really want to be in the green room. They say this. I hope that person works on another Resident Evil game day in his life. who came up with that concept.
It's like, all right, guys, you know how we always end with a giant rocket launcher at the end for the main boss? I got this great idea. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to have the helicopter. We're going to build the climax. It's going to be up. We're going to drop a pistol.
Well, at that point, you're supposed to come out with DLC and then make that person have some type of... He blacked out. Ethan blacked out for a second and then dreamed that Chris was playing a joke on him. But when he opened the case, it was really the rocket. That's when the DLC is supposed to come out.
Oh, it could be the lipstick rocket like Ada had in one of the Chronicle games. The lipstick rocket launcher. CrossFit Chris came out there and just freaking boulder punched him.
Oh.
So, that's that.
And then, number 6 is also number 6.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and that's only because Leon is the only Resident Evil campaign in the whole entire campaigns in that game.
Dude, Leon's campaign was really good too.
That's all I got to say.
It friggin' started off like old school horror on a college campus, just looked good, felt good, it was dark. Man, it just screamed like old school Resident Evil horror. Mm-hmm. You had the slow moving zombies. I mean, like it was like little bit of mystery going on, you know, like it really did set the stage for what could have been a really good Resident Evil game, but it controlled so freaking good. Like you could do anything in it. Like I really, really was digging where it started, and then it goes way off the freaking rails. Like, started off good. Before you know it, you're crashing helicopters, you're flipping over freaking buses and wrecking cars, and then you got this giant T-Rex freaking thing going on at the end, and these giant spider bugs, and just, it went nuts.
Oh, yeah. That guy did so many... He was making a mockery out of bosses, Resident Evil, that guy. He just kept freaking doing... the Frieza on us.
Just kept changing. He was over 9,000.
He just kept transforming. And so, yeah, that's the only reason why I really, well, I ain't gonna say I really did. That's the only reason I got somewhat sympathy for that game, because of Leon's campaign. And I actually want to take it off the list, because I don't even want to put it on the list, because it messed up the possible best thing that any Resident Evil game could have ever had, and they just messed it all up. And it makes me want to take this off the list and put it in the corner. And what I'm talking about is when Leon and Chris meet on screen for the first time in Resident Evil history, and some fans thought that they were enemies for some reason, rivals. I don't know what gave them the reason to believe that, but one can be perceived that because they just never been on screen and they never talked about each other in any game previous. And this is the opportunity, the most beloved characters in the series.
Yes.
Like those are like the two main characters, and I probably would put Jill and Wesker or Swap, whatever, after them. And then they just said, Leon, Chris, scene cut to the next one. What the freaking heck, man?
Yes, it was terrible, man, because it was all this build-up, and all you wanted to see were these two guys coming at it, like your two mainstays in the franchise, the two main guys, like the most popular people in it, and they had all this tension build up. Whose side are they going to be on? What's going to happen? These guys have never crossed paths before in the actual franchise, and then here comes this epic build up, and then right when you're like, oh man, what's gonna happen? My man Chris is gonna win. Oh no, Leon's getting pretty good over the years, what's gonna happen? And then they come together, and as quick as it came, it was gone and nothing happened.
Exactly.
It was just like, what was the point? Like, you just wasted it.
It went to the next scene.
Exactly. It's like, why would you even do that? Like we could have had a big build up with someone else that they weren't going to kill or fight or whatever.
That's probably the biggest mistake that they came up with besides going action packed. Honestly, that's how I really feel about it. I really feel that that's probably, besides going action packed as one of their biggest mistakes, I would like to say that is by far the biggest mistake, that they lost that opportunity to make.
I agree.
You can't. They had every reason to actually fight each other, because they, even when they're working on the same side, it's like you got Chris talking about this chick named Ada, and you got Leon who's in denial about the relationship that he has with this chick.
Acts like he didn't know nothing about her.
I mean, they had all the spaghetti, meatballs, pastas, stew, or whatever you want to call it, all the fits for this scene, and it just cut to the next scene.
Dude, it was such a waste, and it could have been the biggest moment in the franchise.
The show right now.
It could have been the biggest thing in the Resident Evil franchise. That showdown, you could have done so much with it. I mean, you could have had whole games based on that conflict. But yet, all they did was freaking like, oh, I think I'm with Ada. Oh, I'm against her. Oh, what are we gonna do? Let's pull our guns at each other, and then let's run off. It just didn't make any sense.
Oh, Jake.
And Jake, oh my gosh.
He sucks.
What a wasted opportunity.
He's stuck in a crap. You can't be Wesker and then cry.
Like, he could have been the big bad, you know what I'm saying? Like, he could have been like we could have had like such a big build up with him, and he could have taken the franchise to the next level. It could have been Wesker's gone. Now we got the new Wesker. But instead, we just got this endless runner campaign and him fussing and crying all the time.
I want to exile the whole cast of people who worked on it. Just exile them.
It's like, you know what? Y'all gave us this campaign. It didn't make any sense. It was fun to play. It was great. I mean, you could do anything. Like, there's the best control in Resident Evil game to date. So you could roll around, you could knife, you could stab, you could slide, you could do all this cool stuff. But like, at the end of the day, like, the biggest, you could have had this exact same game with all the complaints everybody has with it. But if you would have nailed the Chris and Leon encounter, and if you would have done something with Jake besides make him a giant freaking moody teenager, like,
well, he doesn't necessarily. Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, like he could have been the next Wesker. He could have been the next thing. Like, when him and Chris getting this little, oh, you killed my dad. Oh yeah, I killed your dad. Like, they could have done something with that, but they didn't do anything.
Yeah, and that could have possibly. Yeah, I was just about to say, or he could have just been a good Wesker, like a good version of Wesker. But he didn't have anything but Wesker's blood. Yeah, he had a little bit of strength, like real.
Yeah,
a little bit of strength. Okay, he wasn't nowhere. He ain't punching boulders. Like, Chris is stronger than this cat, man. Chris punching boulders, and you got the Wesker's blood in you, and you can barely flip a log. You know.
All right, so my number 6 is going to be the Resident Evil 2 remake.
Oh, you cheating?
I don't know about
you cheating like a mother. I knew you was gonna cheat there.
I don't know about cheating. You know, like, we didn't talk about this before the show, so I wanted our list to be a surprise for each other. But you know, I don't look. The Resident Evil 2 remake doesn't replace the original game. The original game is still a standalone best, and it's because they changed things.
I should have known you was gonna do that.
I mean, it's a great game and it's a beautiful game, but like, it can't replace this first one. Or, excuse me, the original. So it's got to be
a nice perspective.
It's got to be its own entry in the list. You know, it's, like I said, fantastic looking game, amazing sounding game, but a standalone game nonetheless.
Whoa! I'll give it the best. I give it the best looking horror game, but I'm okay. You know what? No, I'm sorry. I can't say that. I still got to give it to the Metal Gear, at least for their era, and this is all in the same era.
Well, yeah.
Every Metal Gear game that came out for that era trumped any other game that has played graphics. I'm not
sure. Until the next Resident Evil game came out.
I bias.
Yeah, definitely biased. But Resident Evil 2 Remake is, like I said, probably one of the best looking games that's come out, and definitely one of the best looking horror games of all time. And it plays amazing, it sounds amazing, and the tension, the absolute tension that they added with Mr. X is both good and bad, because as much as I enjoyed playing that game, it was so beautiful, and I wanted to look around, but that freaking Mr. X was chasing me everywhere, and I didn't get to enjoy it. And I agree.
It was too dark. It was too many dark areas.
There were definitely some dark spots in it too, for sure. There's some spots that you can't see anything. And what's unfortunate is that we did a review on this game for the 2236 podcast, and unfortunately we had lost that audio. And in that recording, I had talked a lot about the things that they had changed and the things that worked and didn't work for me. And it'd really be great if we could get that show back.
I got it. We can recover it. I got it. It's just a matter of audio.
Well, let's we'll put a pin in there. Hopefully that'll be something we can salvage. But that game had its problems, and I have problems with the way they changed things, and then the things that they added and made look good and made and they did add to the story. They didn't replace the things that I thought were crucial as a longtime fan. So that being said, as wonderful as the Resident Evil 2 remake is, and it really is truly wonderful, it is not even in my top 5. And now this list, I want to go ahead, and there's going to be some listeners who might challenge me because this list might change the next time. I might go back and play one of these games and say, this is better than I remember. But as it stands of right now, this recording, I sat back in, just listened to a little bit of music score, and I just compiled my list, and I really thought about it. And I was like, you know what, Resident Evil 2 Remake doesn't have, it doesn't have that top 5 for me. So, all right, your number 7.
My number 7 is, now I'm just putting them in. I don't really have anything under 5, really. Like, I got my top 5. All the rest of them are Resident Evil games that I have just played. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And I can't really remember too much of them, but I do remember a vast knowledge of the story. I can still go toe to toe with you, girl, when it comes to plot points and stuff like that. I can't remember Code Veronica and not too much of Revelations, which is my number 7. Revelations.
Okay, that's a really good one.
Yeah.
Well, my number 7 is Resident Evil 3. We've already kind of talked about that one. It was somewhat forgettable, but it was Raccoon City. It looked really good for its time. I do remember it being fun, but much shorter than the rest of them, and it did add some features to it that were really good. It was a bit of an improvement when it comes to some stuff, but I've played Resident Evil 3, the original, the least of almost all the main titles. I've played that one the least.
Yep. That's why I can't remember numbers. So now I'm not ashamed anymore.
No, it's totally cool. It was actually, when you said that, I felt a little relieved because, I was like, I play some of these games over and over and over. Like, I started Resident Evil 4 in January. I'm playing back through Resident Evil 4 again. And so some of these games, I just go through them over and over and over again. But then some of them I've played through maybe once or twice, and I haven't returned. So did you have one that you wanted to use for your number 8?
Yep, Revelations 2.
Okay, yeah, that was another good one.
Yeah, the Revelations games, the first one I like, Jill. That was dope. I like Jill. My top 5 favorite characters to play with. Hey, it's only really 5 anyway. But that's pretty much it. Like, I'm not really a huge fan of what was it? Was it a Nintendo game or a handheld before it came to the station?
Revelations was on the 3DS, the Nintendo 3DS first. I'm not a fan of handheld and all that stuff. I'll play them if I got one, but I never played Revelations until it came to the station. And then part 2 came out. I was like, well, I'm a Resident Evil fan, and I ain't seen Barry in a minute, so there you go. I dig it. All right, well, my number 8 would be Resident Evil Code Veronica. I know we talked about it earlier. That one had more of the tank controls feel. It was one of the original releases. I played it. I bought a Dreamcast. I talked my dad into buying a Dreamcast just for this game. Now, I don't remember when the Dreamcast came out, how close to launch that Resident Evil Code Veronica came out for the Dreamcast, but I do remember when it came out, we purchased a Dreamcast. It was at a Myrtle Beach KB Toys. He bought me the Dreamcast and Resident Evil Code Veronica, and I played the ever-loving fool out of it. Now, it has its flaws because, as we've talked about recently on the Loot Bros podcast, Steve Burns, the Leonardo DiCaprio kind of wannabe, and Alfred Ashford and his ridiculous laugh. Oh my gosh, it's so corny. And if you don't remember it, Donnie, you need to look it up. I will actually sample it into this show because I have it on a soundboard when I do my editing. It is part of I use it. It is so bad. But that game had some heavy cheese to it. So, what you got for number 9?
Is it cool if I do number 9 and 10? Because it's
go
pretty much
for it, man. Go for
all
it.
right. Number 9 and 10 are the Outbreak 1 and 2. Outbreak was I don't remember. Again, it's been I only play Outbreak maybe once, and I can't even remember if you can go back and beat it with different characters or not. But I only beat it with the one character, and only reason I really stayed with it is because I started a game, so I must finish the game because I already started it. So that's pretty much it. But it did have some of those same dope elements as 2 and bumped it up a notch. And what I mean by that is the same thing that happened in 2, like take something, it's not there the next time you go around, or in this case, if somebody else comes and play with a different character, it's not there and all that stuff. But bump it up a notch by you can actually swap as well between the characters that's there on the screen with you. Also, if somebody that's on your squad dies, that's it. And to bump that up a notch, you get infected.
Yep.
So you turn into a zombie, and if that happens, well, sorry for you. That's also that right there is the what I liked about Outbreak, and it was different. I don't mind giving different a shot. It stuck, but at least you were different.
Yep. And it was crazy as how before its time those games were. The Outbreak files you could buy a modem, you could pop it onto the back of your PlayStation 2, you could play online with a dial-up connection, and all of the 8 different survivors, you could play together. Now, I never got to experience that because down here in old South Carolina, we didn't have internet that could do anything like that, But I did buy I bought the little modem. I put a hard drive in my PlayStation 2 and then modded it to download all my games to it. But that's neither here nor there. I did play the Outbreak games. I really enjoyed them. And it doesn't make... Yeah, it doesn't make any sense at all why we don't have these games on current gen consoles with the internet infrastructure. This game would just, in my opinion, print money. Let a bunch of people play as a traditional survival horror game online with each other.
I don't understand why we don't have a lot of the older stuff that Station 2 had. That's I'm quite sure can easily be implemented into the Station 3, 4, and the next gen and all that stuff. But Ghostbusters should have been a multiplayer. You know what I'm saying? And I don't understand why we don't have it like that, just like how you just stated with the Resident Evil games and or games of that likewise the future and present as well. It's like, come on, man. You get these people don't want to say it and admit it and all that stuff, but we playing PC with these consoles. I don't care what you want to say. These are freaking they're freaking computers, okay? Everything the PC can do, we can do except for break the freaking code. That's it. You know what I'm saying? But I don't see why they don't do that. They don't utilize that stuff. But yeah, we just crybaby gamers, so.
Yep. So it's my turn for number 9. My number 9 would be Resident Evil 0. Now, I don't know if you got to spend any time with this one. This one was a GameCube joint.
I never played it, but I do know about the story.
Yeah. Well, it is a good one. It introduced a system where you could item swap and drop items in certain rooms and double back and get them later. Ooh. But it sacrificed the item crates. So you no longer had item crates. You just had, areas that you would almost use. Like what I would do is I'd find a room that I would like, okay, here's the safe room. I can save in here. I can I can kind of re-up. So I would just drop my items in there and then run back to them if I needed them.
Okay, well, that's more realistic, if you want to say logical, I guess you could say, or I ain't gonna say logical, realistic wise. That's more because I'm not gonna drop something in the drop box in the downstairs linen closet and then go to the freaking cellar and it'll be there too. You know,
be nice though. I wish I could do that here.
Yeah, that'll be dope though. It'll be dope.
But with that being said, you know, this one, the things that I didn't like about the game were they experimented with the T virus on animals and insects. So a lot of your enemies were. Peter would be pissed. But a lot of your enemies were just monkeys and bats and roaches, and it just didn't work for me. I'm a traditional zombie guy. The game overall was still really good, and you went back into a mansion and you come off of a train. It had some really good stuff. The leeches were really, really cool. That was a really good addition. But overall, it just wasn't, you know, it made my top 10, but it kind of barely did. And this one, my actual number 10, I go back and forth on, because in my memory and in my heart, this game is probably way better than it really is.
Survivor.
And it probably... No, I didn't say Survivor. This one is Resident Evil Dead Aim. It was a PS2 joint. It was third person until you got into a battle scene, and then it would switch to first person, but just the reticle, just your little crosshair. It's almost like an on-rail shooter.
That's how it worked. I thought it was. Yeah. I thought it was like that the whole time. Like I don't know the story of Dead Aim, but I know the gameplay of Dead Aim.
Yep, and it's really good. It's really good, and it's one of those games that I would love, man. Put that back. Put that on PS4. Put it on PS5. Whatever. Let me play it on PS3. I don't care. Shoot, let me play it on the Vita. You know, that's another game I would love to go back through, because right now I actually don't own a PS2, and my backwards compatible PS3, the disc drive broke. So I don't have a way currently to revisit that game.
You said backwards compatible PS3. You got the big body.
Yeah, I got the fat boy. It's sitting in my basement right now. But
you got the you got the Stafford and Son edition.
Yes. But yeah, so Dead Aim is one that I look back on really fondly, and maybe it's not as good as I remember, but it's one of those that when I hear Resident Evil fans talk, I'm like, oh man, no one must have played this game, because it was really good. But one of my most fond memories, one of the things I loved about it the most, was that when you beat the game, there's a band called Rise, and they have a song called Gunshot. And it's like, I don't know if they're Puerto Rican, but it's like a Puerto Rican rap rock band. So it's a cool, you know what I'm saying, like rock guitar riff. And these dudes are just, you know, screaming, singing the words gunshot over and over again. And it's just, and then he raps over it in Spanish. And it's so good. It was like one of those things to where, like, I've played through the end. I beat the tranny boss because he's like a dude who morphs into like a chick, and he was like really weird about like trying to become the perfect life form, and in his eyes the perfect life form was becoming a woman, and it was a really weird like ending.
Does the Alphabet Plus people know about them?
You know what? I don't know. They'd probably be kind of mad about it too. But that was pre-Alphabet Plus movement. You know what I'm saying?
You're demonizing our beliefs.
Yeah. But this dude, like, he was way ahead of his time, man. He was just doing all that stuff, and it was, when the game was over, I was like, man, that was pretty neat. I really enjoyed that game. And then the song comes on, and I'm a huge fan of rap rock. So, like, I was like, man, this is cool. So I've always looked back on that game very fondly, and it wasn't in my top 10 until we started talking, and I swapped my number 10 out for this game, just because. I can't tell you, because see, we're gonna have to come back another day, and we're gonna have to talk about the rest of the games
Ooh,
that maybe
you see what I did there? You see what I did there?
Yeah, see, we're going to have to come back on another night and talk about the rest of the Resident Evil games that are left in the franchise, and what they did well and what they didn't do so well. So,
because
Donnie,
Darrell taught too much.
Hey, man, that's what we do. When the two of us get together, you know what I'm saying, the double D virus. But Donnie, I really, really appreciate you coming on the show. And we hammered out our top 10 in the Resident Evil franchise. And you know what's great about this? We only had one answer that was the same, and that was the original Resident Evil game.
Yeah,
so,
I was going to say that. even if yours was the remake version, I still count it.
Yeah, well, I mean, technically, it's still the first game. But,
yeah.
If you're a Resident Evil fan and you enjoyed this podcast, please leave us some feedback. You can write into the show at 2236podcast@gmail.com. Go to iTunes, Apple Podcast, all the different podcast apps. Leave us some feedback. We will return. And we're going to talk about the later releases, because we still got over 10 Resident Evil games left to talk about.
About 15... 20, 25 more games to talk about.
There you go. And then we got, we have a lot. We have a lot to talk about in this franchise. But coming up down the road, we will have a couple indie survival horror reviews, some games that I'm working with some horror developers with. Super excited to talk about. Donnie, I really appreciate you being on the show, man. If there's anything you want to plug or anything you want to tell the listeners, now is your chance.
Yes, I'm back. Whatever Talk is back. I recorded my first show a week ago as of recording this one, and I gotta say, it feels good. It feels good. Over the past, I'm just gonna round it out to 2 years, because that's about the last time I did Whatever Talk. But I come to realize that talking may actually be my therapy. Not, it may be my therapy. I don't know yet. It just feels good to do it. And it feels good talking about the things that I talk about, which is very raw and out there, and pretty much everything that everybody else is afraid to say. I'm that cat that says. So, check out check out Whatever Talk when it comes out. I don't have a set time when it's going to come out yet, but I will be going back and re-releasing episode 62 on up to the present, because it's only me and another cat, which is the cast of Whatever Talk this time. And that's when Simply Cav, which is my co-host, he came on in episode 62, I believe. So I'm going to re-release all those and set forth the new ones. We only recorded one, but you know what I'm trying to say. So go back and listen to some Whatever Talk and get those out there. If there's any episode that's not out there that you want to listen to, let me know. Facebook, Whatever Talk Podcast, just the group, or just get at me on wherever you can find me at, and just say, want this episode? I will actually email it, give it to you, free of charge. And I have this other project that I'm working on. This is a serious one, but I know I just know you LOL'd as I'm about to say this, but it's going to be religion related. And I'm just going to just say that I don't want to change the mood from what it is now, because that was what it's called and what is going to be talking about. That was most definitely changed the mood of right now. I'm just going to say that, but go to listen to the latest episode of Whatever Talk, which will be episode 94, because I'm picking back up where I left from, because it's still season 1 after all these years. And you will get some intel on my side project that will be coming out real soon, and I just hope you have an open mind about it. That's all. Just pay attention to what I'm saying, because that I'm saying it very clear, and just pay attention to it. And shout out to my family, my wife, kid. Love y'all. All the other families out there, the rest of the cats in the world. Even though I am a misanthropy, I think that's how you pronounce it. All that would be explained in the episode or whatever, taught 94.
All right, there you go. All right, well, I am the host of the Loot Bros podcast. This is a weekly podcast you can find where we talk about video games. We make a lot of dumb jokes. I have a handful of special guests that host other podcasts that kind of come on and fill in as my guys may or may not be able to make it. We cover all types of stuff. So we have a blast on that show that releases every week. You can find it on every single podcast platform out there. That is the Loot Bros podcast. This is my passion project. This right here, 2236. This will be something that I'm going to continue to work on and grow. Thank you so much to everyone who's already reviewed the show. I got a few messages today from people who were like, hey, I checked out the show. I really dug the first episode, even though it was a re-release. They left some reviews and some feedback, so I was super, super stoked. If you're listening to the show, please leave a review. Help me get it out there. I would really like to grow this in the Resident Evil and horror community to get some more people like me and Donnie, out and about talking about this kind of stuff. So that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will be back soon with some more survival horror and action with a twist of horror.
Peace out.
Holla, holla, holla.